Hello everyone! Paramount, Sony, Fox, Disney, Warner Brothers, Universal. All of you here? Great. I called you here today to discuss how you performed last year. Some better than others, but overall, most of you did pretty well. The one exception, you know who you are, but I'll get to you. I was looking over your box office results from 2016, and I wanted to evaluate how all of you did. I'm going to go in order from the best performing studio to the one who did not do that well. Disney, if you could come forward, you had an amazing year. It helped that you bought these other studios to help you out, but you worked hard on them nonetheless. Do I even need to mention your biggest hits? Finding Dory, Captain America Civil War, Rogue One, Zootopia, The Jungle Book, Doctor Strange, Moana. Pete's Dragon did okay too. You didn't overspend on that one. But don't leap onto your high horse just yet. You had some blunders. I can see why you greenlit a sequel to Alice in Wonderland, but in those 6 years it took for it to reach the screen, Johnny Depp lost a lot of his star power. If I were you, I'd be a little worried about how the next Pirates of the Caribbean might do. The Finest Hours is the kind of movie you would have released under Touchstone 15 years ago, and it probably would have done okay. But you don't really do those kinds of films anymore, and it shows with the lack of excitement with which you market them. Speaking of which, you did not really tell many people about The Light Between Oceans and Queen of Katwe. They didn't cost much to make, so the least you could have done was, advertise them. I also don't know how you released a Steven Spielberg family film from the writer of E.T. and it lost a lot of money. What happened, Disney? But you had a great year nonetheless. Keep on doing those Marvel and Star Wars and Pixar films. But when A Wrinkle in Time opens, please tell people about it. Warner Brothers, you had a pretty good year yourself. With Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, you made a hit Harry Potter film without Harry Potter. Suicide Squad was a big hit for you, surpassing a lot of expectations for it. Batman vs. Superman was also very successful, but it could have done a tad more. Could have hit that billion. I enjoyed it, but not many other people did. Hopefully people are more receptive towards Wonder Woman and Justice League. And then there was The Legend of Tarzan, which a lot of people, myself included, thought would be a huge bomb. And while it didn't quite break even in the end, it could have done much worse. What you really excelled in this year were your low to mid-budget films. The Conjuring 2, Lights Out, Me Before You, Sully, Central Intelligence, The Accountants, Storks, How to Be Single, Barbershop 3. You were smart economically with them and it paid off nicely. Even War Dogs did okay, although time may tell with Collateral Beauty. Too early to say on that one. Your few low-budget misses were Keanu and Midnight Special, but you had a lot on your plate this year. The Nice Guys should have done much better though. It did not do well at the box office, but it is destined to be a cult film. 20th Century Fox, you had an interesting year. You start off with a bang with Deadpool and Kung Fu Panda 3. X-Men Apocalypse did nicely too, as did Trolls and Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Independence Day Resurgence did okay, even though you were probably expecting way more. But it is a little hard to get people excited for a sequel to Independence Day when Will Smith would rather hang out with Harley Quinn. And then there's Ice Age Collision Course, which, thank goodness for that international box office. People overseas still love Scrap, but maybe it's time to let Blue Sky do something else. Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates, and Eddie the Eagle did okay. Help that you didn't overspend on those two. On the other hand, you did overestimate how well Keeping Up with the Joneses would do. Rules Don't Apply also did pretty poorly, but it's not like Warren Beatty is going to make another film anyway. Morgan also lost money, which is a remarkable film that cost very little. Too early to say on why him and Assassin's Creed, although the latter will have a hard time reaching the break-even point. Next up, Universal. You had such an amazing year in 2015, it was going to be hard to live up to those expectations. But like Warner's, you were smart with budgets, and your films are proof why you should never measure success based solely on the domestic box office. The Secret Life of Pets and Sing are further proof that your obnoxious marketing for your animated films does indeed work. The latest Jason Bourne and the Purge films did well, as did The Girl on the Train. You probably understood Ouija Origin of Evil, Neighbors 2, and Ride Along 2 were not going to make as much as the first films, and so budgeted accordingly. You even recognize that My Big Fat Greek Wedding was the kind of box office hit we don't see anymore, and there was no way the sequel would make as much, so you didn't ridiculously overspend on it. Bridget Jones's Baby and Warcraft showed the power of the international audience, in their cases Europe and China respectively. You also fared okay with some of your low-budget comedies. The Boss, Hail Caesar, Almost Christmas, and the Kevin Hart concert film did not break the bank, but you didn't lose much money on them either. Popstar, Never Stop, Never Stopping, unfortunately did not really bring people out in droves. And I'm not quite sure why you went ahead with a Snow White and the Huntsman prequel without Snow White, but since those two were your only real flops, you had a good year. Then we have Sony Pictures, the underdog, and you were not too shabby yourself in 2016, mostly because of your low and mid-budget films. The Angry Birds movie was a big hit for you, and Don't Breathe, Sausage Party, and The Shallows were extremely profitable. Miracles from Heaven and Risen showed the power of your religious films brand, and When the Bow Breaks, Money Monster, and The Fifth Wave shows how keeping your budgets under control ultimately helped your films in the end. You also recognize the Dan Brown films at this point are only of interest to the international market and slashed the budget in half for Inferno, so you were really smart there. The jury is still out on Passengers, but it wasn't ridiculously expensive, and there's a chance it makes a profit in the end. Sadly, Ghostbusters did end up losing money for you. Big budget comedy is always a risk, and I can understand why you took this one, what with the nostalgia factor, but while it did well domestically, it didn't break out overseas for some reason. The Magnificent Seven also ended up losing money in the end, but westerns historically are not the biggest successes in the rest of the world. Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk was a noble experiment, but I don't think audiences are quite ready for higher frame rates. And even though he has Life of Pi and Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon on his resume, Ang Lee is not a director I would call a commercial filmmaker. And finally, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies and The Brothers Grimsby, while low-budget efforts, did not make close enough to turn even a meager profit. But despite those few misses, you were smart with your budgets, and that helped grab some hits along the way. And finally, Paramount. 10 Cloverfield Lane and Arrival did well, and Fences is doing nicely. Jack Reacher and Offer's Christmas Party put up some okay numbers. Okay, I'm not going to mince words. You did not have a good year, Paramount. I don't know what happened, but the number of box office disappointments you had in 2016 were quite plentiful. Not many people cared to see another Ben-Hur, nor another Zoolander, or even the new Ninja Turtles movie. Allied, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, and Florence Foster Jenkins tried to go for a more mature crowd, who did not budge. You could not even get respectable numbers for a small film like Everybody Wants Some. 13 Hours did not do well in its theatrical release, but hey, I hear it's a big seller on DVD. Star Trek Beyond is the one where I'm most disappointed with you. You should have taken some notes from Sony with how they marketed Skyfall on the 50th anniversary of the James Bond franchise. They made a big deal about it, while you merely went, here's a new Star Trek, if this is your thing, and you're interested, I guess. And that lack of enthusiasm was reflected in the final numbers. But cheer up, Paramount. Maybe next year will be better. I know I'm rooting for you. Thank you for all coming in today. Have a great new year, and I'll see you next time.